Hi, thanks for letting me geek out with you guys for the next 5 minutes. I apologize ahead of time. Great. It doesn't show anything down here. Are we good? Okay. Oh, shoot, there it goes. All right. I want to talk to you about the problem you might not know that you even have. So here we are in Colorado Springs, surrounded by beautiful mountains and tons of international ministries and organizations working around the world to help people in poverty. But how do we as donors, how do we know that we're actually making a long-term difference? Is it possible that we've become so focused on the individual that we've lost sight of the bigger picture and are actually doing more harm than good? Consider this. In the last 50 years, the U.S. has spent $2 trillion sending money to poor countries. That includes government aid, our foundations, our faith-based ministries, all of it. Over $2 trillion, and yet, when we actually look at the evidence, what we find is that our charity is perpetuating the cycle of poverty and making the poor poorer. In fact, in most countries that depend on aid and charity, they're being driven further into poverty. When money was sent to Africa at its peak time in the 90s, poverty rose from 11% to 66%, putting 600 million more people into poverty. That's truly a shocking figure. What's more shocking is that in no other industry is failure allowed to persist like this. But how can this be? How can $2 trillion not be working? One of the major reasons we see this happen is because aid actually breeds corruption. The infusion of freely usable cash props up corrupt officials and means that they don't need to tax their populations, which might sound nice. But when you're not taxing your population, the absence of taxation leads to a breakdown in the checks and balances between the people and its government. We've all learned the phrase, no taxation without representation, but on the flip side, for developing countries, not paying tax means people also can't demand anything from their government. Our money is undermining the social fabric of these societies that are no longer responsible for their people. And then it leads, oh, we missed it, shoot. And then it leads to conflict. So we see conflict arising in these countries because there's a grab to be at the top, to grab the aid that's flooding into these markets. In the last 50 years, 40 million Africans have died in civil conflict. So it comes as no surprise that no one wants to invest in a country that's filled with corruption and conflict. With no investment, their economy is shrinking, there's fewer jobs, and poverty is increasing. And they're trapped in the cycle of needing more aid. If we know it doesn't work, why are we going to do it? And why do we keep doing it? So I'd suggest that there's two reasons. Number one, because we need to, and number two, because it makes us feel better about ourselves. So first of all, we have an entire industry of employees that are in a sector around giving all of those donor dollars away, and they need their jobs. And secondly, it makes us feel better about ourselves because we've bought into the lie that we've been sold, that we can save poor people. All you have to do is give up your latte, just $5 a week, and you can make a difference, right? The problem is that in an effort to help others, our genuine love for them and wanting to help them, we've undermined the system that allows them to break out of poverty. The problem is that fixing the system means we have to commit to doing the hard thing and looking at a long-term view of our philanthropy, which is hard to do when you're faced with the realities of starving children and poverty. So I'd like to offer a better way to help the poor, one that doesn't just make poverty more comfortable, but actually breaks the cycle for good. It's time we start investing. We need to invest in people and systems that allow communities to thrive on their own, because investing brings dignity. When you no longer have to rely on a handout, but you have a job, you become more self-confident and you gain respect. Poor people aren't poor because they're lazy. They just lack access to market opportunities. So let's start considering our donations like investments, which takes time and research, but has the potential to pay off far more than donating ever could. For instance, having compassion and sponsoring a child is really nice to send them to school. But if they don't have a job when they get out of school, then we're going to have to also sponsor their children and feed their children. So it's time we invest in something that might not be quite as picturesque as a little boy or girl in a uniform, but instead gives work to the parent of the child so we can break the cycle and see long-term improvement. We simply need to find places to invest our dollars that actually work so we don't see the same problems a decade from now. I'm really passionate about investing in entrepreneurs and business owners. because these are the folks that drive our economy and have the potential to change any nation. At Alternative, we invest in launching small businesses, and we invite you to come and learn more about how you can start investing in change that lasts.